Yeah, boy, it's episode 157, and this is a Fantasy Football Auctioneer podcast. The Fantasy Football Auctioneer podcast is the official podcast of the fantasyfootballauction.com, the internet's only website dedicated to all fantasy auctions. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at Fantasy Auction. We are breaking down AFC divisions. Right now, we are on the AFC East. We have the one and only Slim with us tonight. Slim, how you doing tonight?
Doing awesome. Pretty much as good as I was there last time I talked to you.
Yeah. I mean, the last time it was you were doing awesome too. Just kidding. All right. So we're breaking down AFC East. Blister broke this stuff down for the website. We have a membership area where we've got all the divisions and all the teams broken down. So you can check that out at thefantasyfootballauction.com. Blister is out entertaining tonight. So Slim, it's just me and you.
Yes, sir.
And we've got a couple of ugly teams and the Patriots to talk about coming up here. So I guess no time like the present to get her going here, Slim. So if you're ready, then I'm ready. Let's cock the hammer. It's time for action. All right, so like I said, we're breaking down the AFC East. We're going to take a look at the four teams here. We're going to start first in Northern New York, Slim. Let's take a look at those Buffalo Bills, who I know you're getting to know here really quickly. We've got Sammy Watkins. We've got Tyrod Taylor. Zeke Jones was a big pickup here in the rookie drafts. What do you see about the Bills? What do you like? What don't you like heading into 2017?
Well, I think the obvious like is LeSean McCoy. I think he will be used again heavily. I think he will have his fair share of scoring opportunities. I think he'll be used in the passing game as well to some extent. So barring injury, I think for me, he's a fairly safe kind of top 5 RB, somebody who you'd want to look at taking maybe right after, the consensus top 3. David Johnson might be well and Zeke. He's right up there after those guys with me. So, like him. I like Jonathan Williams. If I can get him for cheap enough, I think it's going to be a little bit hard to do that. But if I could get him for a couple bucks at the end of my draft, whether I own LeSean McCoy or not, I think that's something that I would be more than willing to invest in.
Yeah, and I mean, there's really not much else behind LeSean McCoy than Jonathan Williams. And I mean, he was touted fairly highly going into last year's redrafts. So it only makes sense, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. And so what about Sammy Watkins this year with the loss of Robert Woods? And, that's a big change to that offense. Do you think Sammy Watkins rebounds and goes back up into the category of stud wide receiver?
I don't think he'll get in the stud category. I don't know. I've wanted to believe in Sammy for the last few years, and it's never happened quite like I was hoping. Some people are going to get scared off by the foot injury. That honestly doesn't worry me. His situation worries me a little bit, and the fact that Buffalo didn't re-up or give him that 5th-year option, to me that says something, whether they know something medically or whether they just don't see him as part of their future plans. I'm hoping it's the latter, because I would love to see Sammy go to a team that has a really prolific offense with a really good down-the-field quarterback. I think he could really excel there. I'm just not certain that's going to happen in Buffalo. So even if he's healthy, I just don't know how many targets or how much volume there's actually going to be for him in the passing game. And that's, to me, what's scary. I think the talent is there. The injuries have definitely hurt his value over the years. But, yeah, he's a guy that I think I definitely don't want to be drafting him as my wide receiver one, we'll put it that way.
Right.
If I could get him as a high upside wide receiver too, maybe I decide to go after Gronk or something this year, Kelsey. I need to go a little bit cheaper at wide receiver. If I could get him as a wide receiver too, even better as a wide receiver 3, I would be okay doing that. As long as I've surrounded him with some more stable options. To me, he's the perfect guy you take. I don't want to pair him with I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't want to pair him with volatile receivers, guys that could get injured, that battle injuries. I'll say something like AJ Green. I don't need him and AJ Green. If I'm going to draft Sammy Watkins, I want to make sure it's with a guy like Odell Beckham or Antonio Brown or somebody like that who's shown to be fairly durable, but I think is probably going to play all 16 games. And then I'll take that upside with a guy like Sammy Watkins if I know that everything else is pretty stable on my roster.
All right. So does that then mean you're not too high on Zeke Jones in his rookie year?
No, I mean, I typically am not high on rookie receivers anyway.
Right.
From what we've seen in the past, it just hasn't been enough volume to make guys regularly fantasy viable. You might see flashes. I mean, we saw glimpses from Robert Woods. We saw glimpses from Marquise Goodwin in the past. I just can't invest in a guy like Zay Jones as a rookie in this offense. In fact, I'm kind of avoiding any other wide receivers on this team. I'll wait and hope they slide into waivers, and I'll be aggressive on waivers if it looks like they're showing any type of reliability week to week.
So what about a guy like Tyrod? I mean, we were fairly high on him last year as one of those guys to target in the late round quarterback type philosophy. And, we're right now in the midst of this Scott Fishbowl 7, and he's I think a nice little quarterback for that scoring system as well, especially with the rushing bonus and the first downs, right? There's opportunities for him to get quite a few first downs with his feet too.
Yeah, not to talk too much about that. I was a little sad though. I jumped on Cam Newton in the third because I was scared that there wasn't going to be much quarterback left. And when I got to my pick in the fourth, Tyrod Taylor was one of 2 quarterbacks. I'm trying to remember the other one that I would have felt okay drafting as my QB2. So I was a little bit bummed out there that he was still sitting there. Actually, I think Dak Prescott was the other one. Could have used either of those. Anyway, but Tyrod Taylor to me is a guy who last year I know I definitely was targeting in drafts as what I thought was a high upside streaming tight end option or late round QB option. I think the same thing this year. I think you're going to have weeks where he is going to kill it because he might rush for 70 yards and a touchdown. And then I think you might have the odd week where he might hurt you a little bit because he might throw for only 150 yards and not rush for a ton, and maybe no touchdowns, things like that. And that's what the difficulty is with Tyrod. That stuff doesn't scare me that much because I know if I'm going to go cheap, I'm going to partner him with a quarterback that I think is another good streaming option, and I'm confident in my ability to pick the right play in those streaming weeks.
Right.
So. Yeah, he might hurt you 1 or 2 weeks, but I think the upside's always there, and I think I love the rushing side. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's rushing for over 600 yards this year.
580 last year, 95 rushing attempts.
Yeah, so even if he does that again, I mean, that's nice. Yeah, the passing volume is definitely not going to be there. They are going to be near the bottom probably in terms of that stat category compared to other teams. But when you offset all that rushing and things like that, I think, it definitely brings him in the conversation as a low-end QB1.
Yeah, for sure. So let's move on to another guy who could be a QB1 this year, Ryan Tannehill and the Miami Dolphins. What do you think about the Finns in 2017? This is for you, Blackie. I know you don't listen anyways.
Oh, Black, put your earmuffs on there, buddy. No, I'm just kidding. You know what, I don't mind. I don't like Ryan Tannehill. Our boy Dave Cherney's going to laugh if he hears this because he was just tweeting me after the last pod that we did because I just knifed up pretty much every quarterback we talked about. But I've never been a big Tannehill guy. I don't think he's that talented. Sorry, Dave. I know you don't want to really rip on more quarterbacks. But I will say this, and I'm not going to go as high as a guy like Scott Fish, who's I've heard been touting Jay Ajayi to everybody that would listen, like RB1 overall type stuff. But I do think that there'll be some volume there for Ajayi. I'll admit that last year I was really worried about his durability potential. Kind of proved me a little bit wrong. So I think that he's going to be in line for a lot of touches this year. He's a guy who can get involved in the passing game a little bit too, which I like. He was my first overall pick in the Scott Fish Bowl, I might add.
Oh, yeah?
Late. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to me, he's a guy who could easily be top 10. Should easily be top 10 running back as long as he stays healthy. And then the receivers, we'll have to get into that little bit of a, I don't want to say mess, but there's different names maybe that we need to be looking out for this year.
And so when you're looking at the receivers, though, like who are you spending most of your money on? Is it Jarvis Landry? Obviously, that's going to be the guy. Does Devante Parker even come close to him in your auction this year?
He won't come close, but that doesn't mean that I don't like Parker. I mean, I think Landry's the safest option, no doubt. I liked what Parker showed a little bit in the offseason, at the end of the last season. And some of the things that I heard about him, I really like him going forward. It sounded like he was a kind of a cocky kid in college. Never really had to work too hard. Kind of was the typical kind of college kid, high school kid, just played video games, ate McDonald's and other shit, and just never really had to train and just was good. And I think anybody who's ever followed professional sports knows that as you progress, that gets harder and harder to do. And coming in as a rookie, he never really was ready to train, take care of his body properly. I know Adam Gase called him out a couple times last year, and it sounded like this offseason he's finally committed to doing all those things. And I think we're going to start to actually see the improvements now in the NFL. So I like him as a guy. If you can get him, around wide receiver 40, wide receiver 35, I think that there is potential for him to outproduce that. If I'm going to take a couple high upside flyers and if I can get them for cheap enough in my draft, I'm trying to think of a price off the top of my head. Say for $5. If I can take Devante Parker for $5, I will roll the dice on a player like him, hoping that he can break out. The problem is it's so deep at that position. I love drafting in that spot. There's just so many names that right now fall in there. The Martavis Bryants, the John Browns, the Eric Deckers, the Jeremy Macklins. These are all guys that I like. I mean, so I'll have to really make some tough choices at that juncture of drafts, but I know there's lots of guys there, and if Parker's one of them, I can get them cheap enough. I don't mind doing that.
But now, is there enough targets to go around there? Like, I just was going through his game log from last year, and I mean, 3 targets, 5 targets. These aren't opportunities to become, a high upside player.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's enough targets to go around. I think it's obviously going to come at the expense of maybe it's Landry a little bit, maybe it's Kenny Stills a lot more than what we saw last year. Like Kenny Stills was pretty viable even last year. So, yeah, I definitely think that there's not going to be necessarily tons of targets, but I think that there's enough to make Devante Parker fantasy relevant. Okay. I'm not saying he's going to necessarily vault into wide receiver 1 territory, but I could see him getting into low-end wide receiver 2 type range, which I'll take that for a guy who I'm probably going to be drafting as a wide receiver 4 or 5.
Okay. All right, I got that. So let's move on to, the champs, and Blister in his write-ups got, 3 exclamation points put up behind that. But let's take a look at the New England Patriots. It's a tricky team to draft outside of Tom Brady and Gronk. What are you looking for? What are you looking at when it comes to the Pats this year?
I'm looking to see if anybody can stop them. I guess that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, I love what they're doing there. I think the one hard thing will be how do you feed this many mouths? And this is one thing that I think we're going to struggle with as fantasy owners. I think a guy like Gronk is going to be pretty reliable, but then I think, Brandon Cooks, and I'll be honest, when he first went there, I maybe drank the Kool-Aid a little bit. Like the first day after, I was just like, oh my God, this guy could finish. He's got wide receiver 1 potential in this offense. And then kind of thinking back on it, looking back and pumping the brakes a bit, I think, to me, he's Brandon Cooks is going to be a very good best ball kind of guy. There's going to be weeks where he's going to smash, 30 points. And then there's going to be some where he might only get a couple passes. But I do think he's a good fit for this offense. I just think that New England is very good at just saying, okay, where is our advantage this given week? We are going to just
run the football 48 times today.
Yeah, I think ideally, yeah. We think of New England as this pass-first offense, and really, they like to run the ball. So is there enough volume to sustain all these guys? Yeah, but I think, you got to be careful where you draft them, and you got to be prepared for some down weeks maybe for some of these top end guys, the Julian Edelmans and the Cooks. Even Gronk, to some extent, there might be a couple of weeks where he doesn't do that much. But I think he's maybe the most insulated option, just because he's like the most unique receiving threat that they have in that team. Plus, he's got the red zone potential.
Right. Now, in the backfield, is it Gillislee? Is he the man to own in that backfield? Are you going to how much are you going to have to spend for him?
You know what? That's a really great question. I don't know how much yet you're going to have to spend on him. I think the hype is building right now, and I think it's going to get to the point where it's going to get a little out of control. Anybody who's thinking he's going to do what LeGarrette Blount did and score 18 touchdowns, I think you're on track. That was a huge number of touchdowns in the Patriots offense. So to think that's going to be replicated again this year, I just think that's it's almost impossible to happen. I do think Gillislee is first in line for things. I think James White, is obviously kind of the sole PPR kind of guy. But then I think Rex Burkhead is kind of that catch-all who does everything.
Right.
I really envision all three of these guys getting used. And I think of it as kind of the typical New England Patriots backfield, where you're going to be frustrated a lot of the time trying to predict what these guys do. So again, in these kinds of situations, I like to lean towards the cheapest guy, and I think that cheapest guy is probably going to be Rex Burkhead. And it's not to say that I think he's going to be the most fantasy productive, but if we're going to have a hard time pinpointing who's doing what and when, then just give me the cheapest guy. If I got to own somebody, I want it to be him.
And so do you spend more on Edelman or Brandon Cooks this year? Or do you stay away from both of them and just bid them up and let someone else pay the top dollar for them?
No, I think I would definitely spend more on Brandon Cooks. I mean, even though he might have down weeks, I think he is, he's a pretty stable wide receiver too. I'll put it that way. My biggest thing with Edelman, and I could be wrong, I've been kind of waiting for this maybe for a couple of years. I just think we're starting to see signs of him hitting this age curve where they can creep up pretty fast, and all of a sudden you just kind of drop off. We saw it with Wes Welker in New England, and they weren't hesitant to ship him out as soon as the tread wore off his tires. He finished off in Denver. But I don't think we're quite there yet with Edelman. But this could be the last year. I wouldn't be shocked if this was his last year in New England. I just like what Brandon Cooks can do with very little. He's, to me, the guy. He fits so well with this offense because he can take a 4-yard little screen pass and make 3 guys miss and turn it into a 70-yard touchdown.
Right.
To me, that's his unique skill set to bring to this offense. Edelman can't do that. Malcolm Mitchell can't do that. Chris Hogan can't do that. Obviously, Brown can't do that. So I don't think he necessarily will need a lot on the regular to produce. I think it would definitely help, obviously, for him to be, getting targeted like he was in New England or New Orleans or with Drew Brees. But I just think his volume isn't going to quite be there like we're used to seeing with the Saints.
Okay. All right. So, I think the Patriots it's tough all the way around. I think you hit the nail on the head on who to target, and everybody else is, your flyers and this and that, and because you never know from week to week what's going to happen. There is one team, though, that I think we know week to week what's going to happen. It's the dumpster fire in New York, the New York Jets. Who are you buying, if it's anyone? Is it a Nunwa? What is happening at the quarterback position? Do you care about anybody on this team? Go.
Well, I care.
You're a caring guy.
Yeah,
you're a caring guy. Now, which quarterback are you going to rip up on this team? I guess is a better question.
Well, they all suck. Let's not kid ourselves. They do. It's trash. I don't think you can necessarily overlook guys like Anunwa and Robbie Anderson. To me, those are the 2 guys that I would be looking at, and obviously as later options. I'm a little hesitant, and to me, it's because of the quarterback play. I don't know what they're willing to do. I mean, to me, they should be tanking and trying to accumulate future picks. That would also mean maybe losing as many games as possible this year. So does that mean that they start Hackenberg or Petty? I mean, I think Josh McCown gives them the best chance to actually win games, but I don't know if they actually do want to win games. So I think fantasy-wise, you want to see McCown in there if you own either Anunwa or Robbie Anderson. I think that those guys will have some decent weeks just based on garbage time. I don't think you can necessarily bank on them every week because this offense is going to be very bad. And I want to preface this, I guess, by saying just because there's garbage time, I don't necessarily believe there's going to be a ton of targets for those guys either, just because I don't know how long this offense will be capable of keeping the ball and sustaining drives. There could be a lot of 3-and-outs. And so just because they're getting their ass kicked doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to pile up garbage points regularly, just because I think that there'll be a lot of time where that defense is on the field. It's definitely a dumpster fire scenario. I mean, we've seen Bilal Powell getting a lot of love, at least I have lately.
Just going to ask you about him.
And I like him, don't get me wrong, but I just think, why are we forgetting about Matt Forte, per se?
Yeah.
I am not ready to start anointing Bilal Powell as this low-end RB1. Especially because the team is horseshit. Like, their offense is terrible. I don't know how many passes he can catch to even make him relevant. So, anyway, I think Forte could be a guy that you might sneak like really late in your draft if you trying to get your 5th running back or something like that. If you got a few bucks left, he might be a guy you look at. But yeah, there's definitely not going to be a lot of weekly fantasy reliability coming from this offense, I don't think.
Well, in Forte last year, had 248 touches. That's pretty significant, really. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that are up over that, up around that 250 plus mark. So, there's no reason why he can't get close to that again this year.
Yeah, I think he showed signs of age. And I'll be honest, I don't get what they're doing keeping him if I'm the Jets. If I'm the Jets front office, what are you doing? You've got rid of Decker. You got rid of Marshall. made sense. If you're going to rebuild, get rid of those guys. But then why the hell don't you get rid of Matt Forte too and trade him to somebody? Okay, roll with Bilal Powell and Elijah McGuire in the backfield, and okay, there you go. There's your season. But so I don't know. Maybe Forte might not even be there. Who knows? Maybe in training camp he ends up getting traded or released, or I'm not sure what his cap hit is off the top of my head, but they could cut him for virtually no penalty. That wouldn't surprise me, and then he can get picked up by a contending team maybe to do something. But as of right now, I'm going to take a stab at him for $1 or something like that at the end of my draft.
Right. And I mean, the last 5-6 weeks of the season, he was not good. 5 points, 7.9, then 1, 2.8. Like, it was stinky.
And that's when Bilal Powell really took over and started.
Really took off, right.
Yeah. And so I guess maybe there's that recency bias people are seeing, and it's really driving up the Bilal Powell price tag a little bit right now.
All right, so that's the dumpster fire. We can look at the AFC East this time around. Anything else to add about this division, Slim?
Just see you in the playoffs, New England.
And there you have it. Famous last words from Slim. Anyways, that was the AFC East. Take a look for the full breakdown on the membership side of things at the website, thefantasyfootballauction.com. Give us a rating and a review on iTunes. Help support the pod. And follow us on. We're at Fantasy Auction. Slim is always active on there, answering questions and making comments, and still loving the gifts. So
who doesn't?
Make sure you give him a follow. Yeah, who doesn't? You're right. That's at Fantasy Auction. All right, Slim, I guess we'll wrap this puppy up. I will see you very soon. And for everyone else, I'll see you when it's springtime in the Rockies.